Need a little wine?
Craving some tea? Well, you've come to the right place.
This is a little wine and a whole lot of tea with Chastity and Shauna.
And so, like I've been telling you, and I feel like it's crazy because I think in this year of just like towards the end of 2024 and us like reconnecting, and I think it's been very therapeutic for like both of us because like you have a different view on things, I have a different view on things. We always joke about like me being a Capricorn and her mom's a Capricorn, one of her daughters is a Capricorn. We're all and one of my good friends, Nadia is also a Capricorn, and we talk about like there's two different Capricorns. There's us and then there's the others. And so I think though, like we're very like we will ride for you, we will die for you. But we also don't deal with your bullshit at the same time. So it's like there's this sense of like loyalty. And so I think like the relationship that we have built over even just the last like 6-7 months has been even good, I think, for you, because I'm like a no bullshit person where I'm like, Shauna, figure it out. Like you're in like a very clear mind. Like I give grace, obviously, but I only give grace so much because I'm like, we're adults. You got to get it. You've gotten yourself out of worse situations and you've gotten yourself out of all of these things of the years of you just talked about. And so to me, I'm like, you can do this. Like you can push and you can be better because you've shown that. And for anyone else who doesn't want to give you that grace and doesn't want to see and just wants to put you in this like box of like, Shauna's the Shauna back at 16 when she was all coked out and lying and this and that is dumb because you were 16 and you're now 38. And I just feel like everybody should be given those like the opportunity. And I feel like you've shown enough of like, okay, maybe this person has changed and let's see where this goes. And so I just think it's been like great just to see where you are. And like, not only that, but like you now had to go through one of the hardest things in your life of losing your dad completely sober. Like you now actually have to feel all the things. And
it's been hard.
And because, you know, none of us want to feel things. We always want to like distract ourselves with this or distract ourselves with that. And, you know, one of the things that my therapist had told me was like, in order for you to get over whatever that loss is, whether it's a job, a breakup, a marriage, a death of a family member, whatever, like you have to feel it and you have to go through those necessary grief process in order to get to the other side. And so the fact that now here you are like years later where you could go back and do that. And like, I don't know if you have any triggers. It doesn't sound like you have really triggers because I feel like if anything was going to be triggering, the death of your parent would definitely be something that would like trigger anybody, I think. And so the fact that you've done that and not going back to anything, you actually like removed more and decided I need to get off the edibles. And so to me, I think like that's amazing. And it's such like
actually today was hard. And I told Corey that I wanted to have an edible so bad. But then I have these. Okay, so what I learned, and this was from my own research, is that when you are an addict, it's something that you're going to have for the rest of your life.
Mm-hmm.
But just like an anxiety attack, a trigger or a desire or whatever it's called to want to do it only lasts 15 minutes. So if you can get past that 15 fucking minutes, you're fucking golden.
Okay.
So I just went in my mind and thought of all the things of why I don't want to fucking use it. 1, I got to be on a podcast with you. 2, I need to be aware, like with my children. Like 3 is I am doing so much better health wise and weight wise that's just going to set me back and get fat and fatter and just not care.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the things that I was telling myself, and literally after 15 minutes, I was fucking fine. Like,
got over it.
Yeah, but meth and alcohol, like, hell no, man. Like, I went through so much with those two substances. Like, I was raped when I was blacked out drunk, and I don't know if like I had initiated it, so that's why I don't really call it a rape, because I'm out of my mind and I don't know, I don't know what's happening. And I just
Mhm.
remember waking up while it was happening and I was just like, oh my God.
Did I
And
want
so,
this? Did I not want this? Like, you're not even
yeah.
sure.
And the guy was like confused and he was like, oh my God. And I was like, oh my God. And it was it was freaking traumatizing and going home and not knowing if you're either pregnant, carrying some sort of disease, and you have to go through those weeks getting tested because you made a decision to be dumb and do these things. I never ever ever, I have no desire to ever drink again. And
Mhm.
then with the meth, another traumatic experience happened with my friend and I don't ever hell no,
Mhm.
certain things have happened that have kept me on the main track, but with the meth, what's kept me off of that shit are the kids, because I try to ask myself, would you even have a good high knowing that you're disappointing your kids and you're high as fuck and you have children and what does that look like?
Mhm.
So
Well, and then you just, like,
after,
kind of, like, coast through life, like, being like, "Do I even remember anything that I did with them?" Or,
yes,
like, you're living in this cloud, like, you're going into a day at Disneyland, but you're so high or you're so drunk or whatever, like, do you even remember? Because I know that there's times where I've gone to a concert, obviously not with my daughter, but I went to a concert and I drank too much and I'm like, "God damn it, I don't even really remember the concert." And, like, it was someone that you really wanted to see, and you're just like, "Shit, come on." So, like, I
or
can't
you
even
wake up and
imagine.
you're at home and you're like, how the hell did I get home? And you have to
I'm sure a
friggin',
lot of us have had that for sure. Because I know I went through a phase where, I was 27 to 30 and, we call it my thought years, and, I was struggling after a 7.5 year relationship, and I was like, "Oh, I'm fine, like, I'm good," and I just numbed myself I was drinking and heavily drinking, like, not just like, oh, a couple beers or a couple cocktails or whatever, like, I was drunk, hungover the next day, like, 4 to 5 days a week, sometimes 6 days. There would even be, like, a Sunday where you're like, "Sunday fun day." You better believe I was at the bar at 10 AM to watch those football games, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, yeah, then you go home early and go to bed." I'm like, I was still coming home at 3 in the morning the next morning. Like,
yes,
I was hopping from this bar to this bar to this bar. "Oh, you wanna go to Long Beach now? Cool. Oh, you wanna go to Fullerton after? Alright, cool. Oh," and then we end up at the bar, the local dive bar around the house, and so it's like, you also in those states become less and less of what people want to be around.
yep,
And I just remember for me personally, it was like, I didn't feel like I had like a drinking problem, but I was a problem when I was drinking. And I started to get in fights when I would go out. And really, a lot of my anger was towards men. So you better believe, like, I was holding up dukes to a dude at some point. I
yep,
mean, I had a couple instances where a guy would say something to me and I didn't care. And I was fully prepared. I know if I hit him in the face, I am probably going to get punched back. Now, I am surprised that it never happened because there was plenty of times where I did, and I would be like and
that's
I
so
would talk
scary.
about it, like, I just remember the next day I'd call him like, "Oh my god, like, I got in a fight with a dude at the bar." My mom's like, "What is wrong with you?" Like, "Also, why are you talking about it like this is like a normal, like, Sunday picnic?" And I'm like, "I don't know." Like, that was my life for 3 years, and then I was like, then you start showing up late to things, and then you become unreliable, and then you become all
Yeah,
these things, and so I just remember when all of us decided to move, that was my wake-up call of, like, you need to make changes because you cannot continue to drink like this. You cannot continue to go out like this, and you need to I could have honestly I put myself in so many situations where, you come home with a complete stranger, and I'm like, "Thank God it wasn't like a Jeffrey
yeah,
Dahmer," like, you put yourself in these situations, and I know that we've all had them because when I've talked to friends, you have those people who are very transparent about it, and you have other
yep,
people who are like, "I've never," and I'm like, bullshit. Everybody has some sort of story, which is I think why I love like why we wanted to do this podcast is like to have these real like authentic conversations that people are uncomfortable to talk about. And are we going to have people who judge things that you say, people that judge things that I say? Yes, but at the end of the day, like what we talk about and things that we've gone through and may not be super extreme to people, may be extreme to people, but like it's going to help somebody at least feel like you are not alone.
Yeah, I think everybody has the capacity to get clean and sober and do something with their life.
Okay, so there was just like a few questions that I like had seen that I definitely wanted to ask you based off of like your um just like sobriety and because we've already talked about a lot of things on like obviously like when you're having triggers like taking that 15 minutes and I think that's like amazing for anybody who's struggling with anything that they can use that for sure. But like one of the big things is like what are some of the things that you're like grateful for and why like do you because you know how like when we go through things like there's a lot of people are like oh I regret doing this or I regret doing that like are there certain things that you are regretful of or are you grateful for some of those things that happen that maybe could seem awful to somebody else?
I don't regret anything because it has made me aware and smart enough to educate my own kids because I don't think that I could live with myself if my kids through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like this was all something that I had to go through in order to teach them
Mm-hmm.
the do's and don'ts of like drug addiction and alcohol even.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm grateful that I'm alive because I could have easily killed myself many times. So that's something to be really grateful for. I'm grateful that my brain is intact because alcohol and meth do a lot of damage to your brain and your
Mhm.
heart. So I'm grateful to be alive and that there's nothing like significantly wrong with me health wise. Um, and I'm just grateful that I was able to get sober the way that I have because I have a friend who is actively trying to quit drinking and she's an alcoholic right now. And so like I share with her some of my stories every now and then. And I don't try to push her and tell her what she needs to do. I just tell her that she's beautiful, she's capable, she could do it.
Mm-hmm.
So me being an advocate to other people who are going through the same thing has made me grateful. But when it comes to regret, I don't regret anything. It was some of the hardest times of my life, but what I went through with my uncle, what I went through with my parents, what I went through, all that stuff is during that time, that's what I was doing to try to get rid of living that and living that reality of not being taken seriously or believed or whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't regret it. Um, but yeah, I'm more grateful than anything because I could have died many times.
Yeah.
I remember waking up one time after being blacked out and like thankfully I was on my side, but I woke up and there was like a trail of throw up like on the bed.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't imagine that if I was sleeping on my back, I probably would have died and suffocated. So like I just feel like these are the things that have like like God has kept my ass alive. So I'm trying to also be grateful of that too, that I'm sober. And that's what another thing that keeps me sober is I was given a chance to be alive and to do better, and to go back would kind of be a slap in the face
Yeah.
to God because, he's kept me going, he's kept me alive, he's gotten me through it. So all in all, no regret, and I'm grateful as fuck to still be alive.
And how do you, I mean, because we didn't touch on a lot of like family stuff, which is obviously a very sensitive subject and kind of a touchy point where not everyone wants to cross that. But I think like something that I think that you should also be like proud of and grateful for is that like how we've talked about, you know, your relationship with your dad prior. And so a lot of people don't know a lot of this, but like, you know, he didn't talk to you for years. Because I think too, and not that I'm making excuses for him at all, because I don't think it's an excuse for anybody to not want to help your kids at any capacity, especially one that in a sense you could have taken back, right?
No.
And I think that what he did for a living, it was like, I do this for a living and now I have to deal with this in my home, I'm sure is very hard. Because too, like, you can be a certain way at work and then you can be a certain way at home. And so even though there is rules and guidelines of how you handle those particular people in your job, it's hard for people to also implement that in their own home. And so I think instead of rising to the occasion in most things, it was easier to just throw the hands in the air and be like, I don't want to deal. And so I think that like you handled a lot of that without having like a lot of that support in the best way that you knew how to. But I think coming then full circle where when Papa Bear got really sick and everything, you guys had built a better relationship. And I think it's so good, especially for you in your sobriety living and all of that, to feel good about like, you know, whether you forgave him or he forgave you, whether that was talked about, unspoken, whatever that looks like, there was a white flag thrown and you two were just able to like enjoy each other's company and relationship for what it was, at least in the last however many months. I don't know how long it was. I think that that's great because he can kind of go out with like, okay, at least he had this better relationship with you. And then you can also not have that like harbor on you of like, man, I never made it okay with my dad. Because not a lot of people can say that, which then takes them back into that deep dive and that whole, I mean, I know we've talked about this a lot of where I'm like, you know, you kind of can't forget what that relationship was. So don't glorify it either, but just appreciate the fact that you guys did make it better for what it was towards the end of that. But I think that's something that you should definitely also kind of be grateful for too, you know?
Definitely. It was really hard because I feel like he gave up on me a long time ago because of the alcohol stuff. And, you know, I was going through that again when I was living under his roof. Like when me and my daughter's father split up, I had to go live with my mom and dad for a short time. And I was still going through the whole alcohol ordeal. And I remember I signed myself up for continuation school and started going to school every day. And my dad had went into my room for whatever reason and found all my bongs and shit like that. And I just remember he like broke them all. And I think that day he was just finally fed up with me. And it made me mad because again, the questions weren't being asked of like, why are you doing this?
Mm-hmm.
It was just more or less like, you're doing this and you're doing this under my roof and it's very disrespectful. So I'm done with you.
Yeah, instead of
So
like, how can we make this better? How can we I think that's what people should take away from it because, you know, we all know that things over the years have gotten more extreme with alcohol and drugs and how people handle things. And so for people who are listening who have like teenagers or even family friends or whatever, like who are in active addiction or not, and just like start asking the questions like, why? What's going on? What's happening? And Not saying that everyone can fix everybody, but at least have like a little bit of an understanding to where then you can go into the situation and be like, maybe if they would have asked those questions, maybe that would have been enough for you to feel like, wow, they care. I think when people
Yeah.
don't ask questions, it's like, well, do you actually even care? Like, you're not even asking me why, or you're not asking me what's wrong, or, you know, why, whatever that looks like. Instead, it's like you're just being accusatory, you're being judgmental. You're basically telling me, like, I'm a piece of shit. And I'm sure that's how you felt. Not that they were saying those words, but that's probably how you already felt. And so instead of just asking, that may have been enough for you to be like, you know what, I'm going to have a conversation and I'm going to maybe try to get better because this person actually cares and they want me to be better.
Yeah, I think things started to turn around when I got married and had Bailey. And then I think slowly and surely he started to see me grow up a little bit more each time.
Mm-hmm.
And then our relationship got way better like the last 2 years. Yeah, the last 2 years, it's been really good. Like, um, making an effort to go over there, and like in the beginning it was crazy because you could tell he was annoyed. He did not like me there. But I just kept forcing myself. Like, I remember forcing it and forcing it and forcing it, and then it got to the point where Corey would go over there for something and I would be here. And the first thing he would ask is, where's Shauna? Why isn't Shauna coming over? Why isn't Shauna here? So
I'm
I
sure that made
knew,
you feel
like,
so good.
it did. It did. And then it made me feel bad that I wasn't as present as I should have been. But at the same time, like you said, I'm grateful for the times that we had. I'm just sad that like it ended so quickly because we were in a good spot.
Mm-hmm.
And, him and Bailey got really close. So the one thing that I am grateful for is that he never stopped loving my kids, even though our relationship was shitty.
Yeah.
So I am grateful for that. And I'm grateful that he died knowing that I loved him and that I'm doing my best. And I hope he's even more prouder of me now that I'm completely sober as hell and raw dogging life like I should have
Right.
been my
He
whole
was probably
life,
like, holy shit, hell froze over. Never would have saw
Picture
that
fine,
day.
dude.
Never would have saw that day. I think it's amazing. So what are your next steps moving forward now that like all clarity is now here we are January 1st, 2025, like give us some like realistic short-term goals that you have.
Okay, so getting sober off the edibles have made me realize that we have completely neglected our whole life. We've neglected our bills. We've neglected work. We've neglected everything. So my goals for 2025 is to get my car back in its drivable state.
Mm-hmm.
Um, both of us, me and my husband, both hopefully have full-time jobs. And once that is said and done, then we both are kind of like seeking out school, hopefully. Corey wants to go to school for carpentry.
Okay, cool.
And then I've had to decide what I want to do with my photography business, if I'm going to put it to bed or if I'm actually going to go full crazy with this dream. And so I want to eventually take a business class so that way I
Okay.
know how to run a business.
Okay.
Because I already got the photography thing down. I just need to know now how to run a business. So there's a lot of things you can accomplish in 1 year.
Oh, definitely, for sure.
So yeah, paying our own rent. I mean, these are all realistic things that I think that we can crush within this year.
Yeah. Yeah. I
So
completely agree. Well, I think all those goals sound great and obviously realistic, and we'll get you guys on the track that you need to be. And I think it sounds exciting and promising for you for sure.
I appreciate that.
Of course.
I
Of
think we could
course.
definitely do it.
Well, and then what would be some like maybe suggestions or like advice you would have for anybody who maybe be dealing with any type of addiction or at like that kind of capacity, or even like if they have families or friends, like what would be your advice to them?
There's a stigma around getting help, and I don't know why, but don't be embarrassed to advocate for yourself and get help if you are not strong enough to quit on your own. I don't know how I did it or how I was able just to quit cold turkey and that just be a thing for me. And
Mm-hmm.
I know that not everybody is the same. So seek help for yourself. I mean, don't be ashamed, because I mean, there's so many people out there struggling who are ashamed and are afraid to like be open about their addiction. And I don't think there's anything to be ashamed about when it comes to advocating for yourself and wanting to get better. So tell a trusted family member, call a hotline. I mean, call a friend, a church. If you want to, like I said, if you want to remain anonymous, you can call an anonymous hotline. Maybe there's a link we can find to maybe put in on this live for people or something like that. I'll look it
Mm-hmm.
up. But um, yeah, and you know what? I know relapse. I know a lot of people relapse. If you relapse, don't think it's the end of the world. I mean, just every day is a new day. You wake up, start over.
Mm-hmm.
Just keep trying and don't ever give up on yourself.
Well, and we're all human, regardless of what that looks like. And you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. I think like one of the biggest things that I hear from people, especially that go through like any type of recovery or anything, it's like you have to take yourself out of those environments and away from those people, unless you get to a point where you are strong enough. Because I know that like I've met some certain people where it's funny because like how we've talked about like a lot of the dating stuff, right? And so I remember there was like this guy who I just, by the way he looked, I had a feeling he was going through like sobriety or whatever. And a lot of those people, and they'll say like, oh, I don't mind being around people who can drink or this and that. And like for me personally,
I
like
cannot.
I well that, and I'm like, I don't even think that I could even necessarily, not that I'm not a supportive person, like I can have a friend, this and that, to be all that, but I don't think like for me personally, I could be with somebody who is going through like sobriety or anything like that, because it's not conducive to like the life that I want to live. Um and I know it's hard. So for me it's like it'd be different if I was like if my daughter's dad was someone where it's like I have to, right? And I have to like
Mhm.
make sure that like he's okay for her or whatever. But it's like I don't think that I would choose that just because of like all of like I could be your freaking best friend if you want to. But I think that they need to choose people who can be 100 like wholeheartedly supportive in that way. Um like even like you, like knowing that like I mean obviously like I don't smoke weed or I don't do any of the other stuff, but like even drinking, like I'm not going to make you be like I want you to go to the bar scene with me and you're going to sit next to me and watch me get completely shit-faced. Now maybe if you said, Chas, like, I don't care. Like, I'll go with you. I'll be your DD or whatever. Be like, girl, let's go then. But it's like, I would never put you in that situation. So if I'm around you, like, I may not like go and do those things or like put you in a situation that makes you feel like you're uncomfortable.
I think I'm a freak of nature, dude, because I feel like I thrive in those situations. So I would be the one to be like, dude, let's go to the bar. I mean, I can totally be around it and not do it. It's the heavier stuff that makes me anxious.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why, like, when I told you, like, my friend recently relapsed and we can't have a relationship because I just can't be around it. So, like, if you know that you can't handle it, you definitely have to make some lifestyle changes. And it's
Mm-hmm.
only for the better. And so it'll be uncomfortable at first. It's going to be all new and everything. But what's best for you is what's best for you. But
Mm-hmm.
for me, I work in the cannabis industry. Okay. Like, I don't smoke. I don't eat edibles. Can I be around it? Yeah. And I don't know how I'm able to do that. But for some reason, it just makes me feel like a sense of normalcy. Like, I don't know. Everybody trips out that I don't smoke, but this is my
You're just in
job.
an environment that you're used to. You're used to those people. You know how to deal with those people. And so that makes sense. It's like a sense of comfort. Doesn't mean that you
Yeah, and then
actually have to do it to be there.
yeah, and that's the cool thing too is that my friends are aware of the fact that I don't smoke anymore. So no one ever offers, but I mean it's the job. So I
Mm-hmm.
feel like that's probably one of the reasons why I'm able to just go into it the way that I do is because I look at it as a job and not like me going and hanging out smoking with my friends.
And I don't think it's like one size fits all, right? For anything. Like, and I
Mhm.
think we all have to make the necessary changes in whatever situation we're sitting in to be better. Cause it doesn't necessarily have to be, addiction, or it could just be like, these people just they don't make good choices. They don't, what's that one saying? Because Joe says it all the time. Like, if you are the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room. And
Yeah.
so, like, always a feeling, and I remember my ex-boyfriend, I used to tell him this because, like, him being in the military and being on the, like, older age for, like, where his ranking is at, he's surrounding himself around kids who are, like, and I just say kids because I'm, like, I'm 38 or about to be 38, and they're 20 and 21, and it's like, dude, I could, like, drink with the best of them or hang out with that kid, but it's like, is that 21-year-old gonna be like my BFF? No, because we're at two different spaces in life. And so I remember
Yeah.
when we were talking about making changes and being better, and you either rise to the occasion or you completely fail. And I would not surround myself around people who make these poor choices or poor decisions, and expect for me to make better choices. Like, and it's funny because then you get these people who are like, well, you're just being judgmental. Because I remember there was a perfect scenario. He was at a party and he was hanging out with this guy, and in the military, he got completely like obliterated. He's just like so drunk. Well, apparently he ends up having to my ex has to protect the wife from a domestic violence situation. Now, apparently this happened all the time. And so I told him, I was like, so why would you keep going back? Well, because I had nothing else
Mhm.
to do. Okay, well, we're not 16, 15 anymore, where it's like, I'm going to go to that party that I know is not in a good place, or like everyone's doing what they're not, just because I want to be invited to the party. Like,
Mm.
we are adults now. And me personally, if I knew that that person gets that shit faced and where I'm having to now protect his wife from him beating her, I am never going to put myself in a situation like that. But people look at that as like, well, you're being judgmental. They could be really nice people and maybe just terrible when they drink. And I'm like, but how does that, like, that affects me in a negative way and puts me in a position that I don't want to be in. And so I think everybody needs to understand, like, when you start cutting people off because they are unhealthy for you and unhealthy for your situation, that is okay. And my friend Nadia and I talk about this all the time. And Nadia even like posted on social, like, what made you, you know, cut off certain people in your relationships or friendships or family or whatever that looks like. And it's so funny because we always say, like, if that person no longer like makes you feel good, or, you know, maybe doesn't benefit. And I use that word because it's not like everyone should benefit you in life. I don't know what the right term should be, but I feel like people should bring a sense of positivity to your life, or something that like doesn't make you feel bad, I guess is probably a better way to put it.
That's exactly what your dad just told me today after we got off the phone, is if they don't bring any value or
Mhm.
like me like not wanting to mend anything with a toxic sibling, like your dad said just that, is that what is mending this relationship going to bring to your life? Like, is it going
Mhm.
to benefit you? Is it going to make your life better? Is it? And I was just like, hell no. Like,
Yeah, it's just going to bring negativity. And I think that that's what I'm saying, when people make all these choices, and if you want better things in your life, when people, I think, try to make you feel bad for making those clear boundaries, then they're not for you either. Because And I think though we also need to be cautious how much, because I do think that there has become a little bit of a toxic boundary line drawing situation that we have now, where I feel like people think that that means that if we are not like-minded that we have to everybody off too, and I don't agree with that. I think we all can
Yeah.
have like, we can hold people on different shelves is what I always say. So like, I'm not gonna have the same type of person times 5 in my life, because what does that do for us either? Like, now we're
Right.
just seeing one perspective. Now I feel like if it's something where somebody is completely being disrespectful to who you are and your morals and your values and everything like that, then of course, okay, make your decisions. But I think that we can hold people at different shelves for different parts of our life. So I think that what we need to stop doing too is telling people like, create this boundary and have this boundary and that's it. Because I think that there can be an unhealthy where now you've completely cut everybody off. Now what? Like,
For
now
real.
what? Now it's like, now everybody else is the problem and like you're not, you know? So I think there's like this
Yeah.
fine line between that. But I think in certain aspects, like when we go back to like drugs and alcohol and things like that, I think it's literally a like black and white for a lot of people. Like, you have to have those healthy boundaries if you want to be better and if you want to do better. And that is okay. And if those people from 10 years ago no longer fuel you and fill up that cup any longer, then it's time to say goodbye. And that's okay.
I agree. I
So
totally agree with that.
I think that you should be very proud of where you're at today. And I think eventually, like, even your kids who like experienced, the crazy Shauna is what we would call you. I think as they get older, they'll get to appreciate who you've become and just your story and like show how strong of a person you are. So I think that you should always, don't ever let anybody make you feel like you are less than or anything. It's a part of your story. And now you just keep continuing and create the ending that you want now at this point.
Thank you.
Of course. Well, for anybody who ever wants to ask, Shauna any questions or anything, we have that phone number as well. We're always up for the DMs. Slide on in and we can answer any questions, or if anybody has any stories that they want to share and just things that you want to get off your chest, we are a safe space. We can talk with you, either one of us, or help guide you in any way. That's what we're here for, and we love it. And for today, for January 1st, 2025, that's the tea.
Yes. Happy New Year's.
All right, pinkies up, guys.
Well, that's the tea, besties. Pinkies up.